Everybody's considering moving to Philadelphia in 2023. However, there are 5 things that you must consider before making your decision. In this video, I'm going to break down 5 reasons why you should not move to Philly in 2023. Everybody talks about the positives, but let's balance that out. Let's talk about some potential negatives. All right, let's dive on in. Well, hey everyone, this is Chris Fuhrman here, and this is my channel, Living in Center City, Philadelphia. Welcome, and if you're a returning viewer, welcome back. Now, if this is your first time with us, and you want to learn more about the Center City area and what it's like to live here, make sure to tap the subscribe button below and click that bell so that you're notified each and every time we put out a brand new video. And we actually get a lot of people reaching out to us that are looking to relocate to the Center City, Philly area, and we love helping them out. So if that's you, if you're thinking about making a move to the area and you have any questions about the market, particular neighborhoods, maybe any condo buildings, or really anything else, you can call, text, or email us, and we would be more than happy to help you out. We really do live in and breathe Center City, Philadelphia. All right, let's dive into my top 5 reasons why you should potentially not move to Philly in 2023. And these are in no particular order here. My very first reason is taxes, and in particular, the Philly wage tax. Now, if you live in Philly, or even just work here, you get hit with this wage tax. Now, thankfully, it's been on the decline recently over the last few years, but it is still 3.75%. So that wage tax is 3.75% if you live and work in Philly. It's a little less if you're not a resident of Philly, but you still work in Philly, you still have a wage tax. It's just a little bit less. Anyway, so if you live here, you're gonna be paying 3.75% to the government of Philadelphia. So it's a tax that pays for some of the services and benefits that you get here, but it is something to consider. Wherever you're coming from and relocating from, you might have a cheaper tax burden. So it really is something that you obviously have to weigh for yourself personally. Many folks that do relocate here to Philly are definitely coming from higher cost of living areas like New York City or maybe somewhere in California where the state tax is so high that moving over here, you have a much lower PA state tax than California, for example. Even if you have an additional city tax, it still nets you more money here. Now in Cali, they probably have local tax as well, so it's just something that you have to consider for your particular situation to really balance the pros with the cons and see what it looks like for you to consider whether that wage tax is worth it or if it's a real big hindrance to you moving in. Personally, I think Philly and Center City in particular has a lot to offer the residents here as far as lots of parks, amenities, the excitement of nightlife, lots of restaurants. There's really obviously a lot of benefits to cities in particular, and we go into those in some of the neighborhood video tours that I've done, so if you're curious, go check some of those out. But again, you'll have to make the decision for yourself to figure out if the tax is worth it for you. My second reason why you may not want to move to Philly is traffic. Yes, traffic. Just like any other major city, we deal with traffic as well. Now, if you'll be living in the city but working elsewhere outside of the city, for example, that might be an issue for you. Most likely it's going to be an issue. If you're going to be heading north or northwest, then you're most likely going to hop on Interstate 76, which sometimes can be a nightmare. That's called the Schuylkill Expressway, or just called 76. Officially it's Interstate 76, but most people just call it the Schuylkill. And traffic on a Schuylkill is fairly annoying, and unfortunately the road was built between the river and the mountain, so you can't exactly widen the road. So it is an issue with traffic, especially in the mornings and coming back in the evenings. So if you live in Philly, but work in an area like maybe Conshohocken up to the north, you may want to consider an alternate work schedule or maybe a hybrid work from home option so that you don't have to deal with traffic every day, for example. Again, something for you to consider. My 2 cents is that just move to Center City and get a job in the city so you don't have to drive. You don't even have to have a car. If you live in Center City, you can easily walk to many office buildings or hop on SEPTA our public transit system to get around to really anywhere in the city, or just get a bike or a scooter to navigate around the city. Really, Philly's actually one of the most walkable cities in America, so living here, you can walk to many locations to work. My third reason that you might not want to move to Philly is that we are dirty. Yep, Philly is a dirty city. Now, while we aren't the dirtiest city in America, thankfully, apparently that's Baltimore, according to House Fresh, their stats. We did rank 21st on their list. So we're not number one, but we're kind of high up there. So if you're coming from the suburbs, this is probably going to be an adjustment. But if you're coming from another major city like New York City or Boston, at least we're a little bit higher ranked than some of them for cleanliness. Now, the one great benefit if you're living in Center City in particular is the Center City District. Their mission is essentially to make Center City clean and safe, and to supplement what the government is already doing. They're kind of like quasi-government, at least that's how I like to think about them. Technically not, but they work so closely with the government. They get some funding, I believe, from the government and private donations in other various places, that they are, kind of quasi-government. Anyway, their mission is clean and safe, really to supplement again what the government's already doing, what the police are already doing. And some of the services that they provide are to clean dirty sidewalks, to pick up litter. So this very much helps Center City in particular be cleaner and also safer. And if you're wondering about safety and crime, we'll get to that in a bit. I assume that's on your mind. Before we move on to our fourth reason, as much as we love making these videos, we really do love helping people relocate here to Center City, Philadelphia even more. So if that's you, if you're thinking about, this might be the right place for me, I want to move here in a couple months or even a couple years, don't hesitate to reach out. It's never too early to get started getting actionable information about the area. So call, text, or email us, and we'd be more than happy to keep you up to date about what's going on in Center City, Philadelphia. As a Center City specialist and real estate agent, we would love to help you find your next dream home. The fourth reason that you might not want to move to Philly in 2023 is our weather. Yes, our weather. Now, if you're coming from the West Coast, this is going to be an adjustment. Philly is definitely not the coldest place that you can be, but it's definitely not like Cali, where you can basically be in a t-shirt, maybe a sweatshirt at night. You will need to dress warm here and dress in layers during the winter months. You could expect daytime temperatures to reach around the 30s and the 40s, certainly lower depending on what's going on with the weather. So if you don't like the cold, Philly may not be the place for you. However, we do get beautiful seasons here, so the variety is really nice. I actually lived in San Antonio, Texas for a bit. For about 18 months, I did a stint down there. And one of the things that I missed about Philly was the seasons. In San Antonio, Texas, and lots of places in California and elsewhere, you really don't get seasons. You don't get that variety. Whereas in Philly, you get a beautiful spring, nice fall time, where it's very pleasant to get out and about and explore the benefits of living in Center City. If you're comparing Philly to, let's say, Boston, New York City, or Chicago, in my opinion, the weather here in Philly is much nicer. To each his own, just my 2 cents. Anyway, if you found this video helpful, before we move on, it would mean the world to me if you can just go down and click that like button so that YouTube knows I'm putting out some helpful content. And also, let me know in the comments below what other questions or concerns you have about moving to Philly. The fifth and final reason why you might potentially not want to move to Philly is crime. I'm sure you expected this one and may have some concerns for yourself. To some, Philly has the perception of being a violent city, a city that is unsafe. This topic is obviously difficult to discuss as it's all relative to where you're coming from, where you currently live, and really what your thoughts are on what is quote unquote safe. If you're currently living in an affluent suburb in a gated community, for example, and you drive everywhere, moving to any city is going to be a very big adjustment for you, especially with the perception of safety, not even the reality, just the perception of safety. Crime stats definitely do put Philly on the map, unfortunately. For example, some sources show Philly as having slightly more crime than Chicago, and New York City, for example. However, again, crime stats are relative, and really, to understand them, you have to understand the context. For example, if you're a tourist coming to visit Philly from another country, let's say, is that unsafe? Well, 35 plus million people every year would say Philly is not that unsafe because they come here and do tourism. They explore the sites, America's historical sites here, Rittenhouse Square, the Philly Art Museum, things like that. So what I'm getting at here is that each area of the city really has its own safety score, if you will, and you need to consider the area that you're interested in living in order to answer the question about safety. And then you also obviously have to define what is safe. The Brookings Institute put out an interesting research study recently. Brookings is a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization, and in April of 2023, they published a research paper analyzing perceptions versus reality, meaning what people think versus what actually happens as far as crime in 4 major US cities, and Philly was one of those that they studied. In this research, they talk about how crime has increased or decreased in recent years, and they get into crime by location, which is the very interesting part I want to talk about. It's really fascinating, but one of their conclusions is, and I quote, "Local data on property and violent crime shows that in New York, Philadelphia, and Chicago, downtowns are some of the safest places to be. Oftentimes, perception is that the downtown of a city is actually more dangerous, but the data, i.e. the reality, according to Brookings, seems to indicate that the downtown areas of the city, so in Philly that would be Center City, these downtown areas are actually the safest places to live and be, at least, again, according to their research." So in conclusion, crime and safety, you really need to decide that for yourself, unfortunately, what you're comfortable with. I think the city has a lot to offer, and yes, you do need to be cautious of your, what's around you, aware of your surroundings. My 2 cents is that this is a great reason to consider living in Center City, Philly in particular. There are many diverse neighborhoods to investigate in Center City, and we will do that on this channel. So make sure to click subscribe below, click that notification bell so you're notified each and every time we do a video. And if you're curious to learn more about crime and safety in Philadelphia, check out this video right here, where I discuss more about the Brookings study in Center City, Philadelphia.